Hi, my name is Gary Hopper, and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. With me is the Honorable Eric Eastman.
So they tell me.
And Kimberly Morin, who is nuts. Oh, and the most important
Were you
thing...
going to say I'm not honorable?
No.
Conversely speaking, there's Kimberly.
Speaking of dishonorable, no, about that actually bothers me. No, not about you, about the guy who got a gun even though he's dishonorably discharged.
Oh, yeah.
But no, so something a little bit more important than the elections and everything else, and that is my grandson got a new sweatshirt, and it was red, and now my sock is pink.
I can verify that for...
Right? Am I right?
You people in TV.
So I'm a little bit miffed.
So you're a little bit colorful today with the yellow, orange, bright green, and
the man's
pink.
wearing a mint shirt and pink socks.
Exactly.
That's your host for this evening, folks.
If you want to,
No, I'm good.
You sure?
Don't want
to traumatize them too.
And I got a gold paper clip.
Is that gold? It looks silver from here. Oh, no, it's gold. I believe you
Is that what
now.
people who retire from Staples get?
Yes, gold
That's
paper
what public
clip.
sector employees use.
Yeah, let's touch on that quickly, because I know you know more about that than I do. But the that moron down in Texas actually was dishonorably discharged, but he was still able to purchase a firearm.
Yes.
Because I know, not that I've bought a lot of guns, and by the way, there's a gun show in Manchester at the Radisson
This weekend?
This weekend.
Oh, great. Let's go buy a lot of
So,
guns.
if you buy a gun, you'll be
Don't
able to
forget, you're going to get a background check because that's what happens, kids.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Even at gun shows.
Even at gun shows, even though they say
No such thing as gun show loophole.
there has never been. So anyway, when you fill out that form, if I had filled out many of them, it says, were you dishonorably discharged from the military? That's one of the questions besides, are you the user of an illegal drug and, you know.
Well, he also was put in prison in the Air Force for domestic violence.
Correct.
That's another question on the 4473
Yes.
form. That's the number of the form. So not only did he commit a felony by lying a couple of times on the form.
I don't know. The thing is that should have, as soon as that background check went, that should have popped.
That should have flagged him somehow.
It should have
Yeah.
flagged
the
him.
database not working? Is it not
Apparently, the Air
cross-referencing
Force
what?
didn't report him,
Right.
and they're supposed to.
Okay.
So it's the federal government's fault all around. I mean, it's not their fault. He's a horrifying piece of human filth, but they didn't do their job. So background checks work to deny. They would have denied him. Doesn't mean he wouldn't have gotten a firearm illegally somehow, or
Sure.
decided to drive a box truck or maybe get some pressure cookers. But he got a firearm legally, even though he's a prohibited he committed all kinds of crimes just doing that.
So it was a total administrative fail.
Yes.
The databases didn't cross-reference. Somebody dropped the ball.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
The federal government
The federal
did.
government did not insert his name into the FBI list. So when he went to buy a gun, the name didn't pop up and say, woo, woo, woo.
Well, the court records are, when they do background checks on everybody, they pull court records, and those, it's all in a database. His apparently never got to the database, and that's because the Air Force didn't do it.
Right.
So the legal filter that's supposed to keep the public so-called safe failed.
Failed,
Okay.
yes.
That demonstrates that these laws, no matter what they mandate and what they, what filters they create, aren't going to be perfect.
They
course
can't.
not.
We're going to slip through.
Well, the
Brings
thing
us
is,
back to the issue. What do we do about it?
Okay, well, think about it. Just remember, murder is illegal.
no,
Okay?
Kim, come on.
Murder is
Where
actually
that? Where does
illegal.
it say that?
People want to put more laws against inanimate objects, but murder is illegal. That's
So wait.
the worst law you can break, right?
So the guy that
That was
killed people.
jaywalking. Sorry.
So the guy that
Depends on what city.
So the guy that killed people in New York with a box truck, that was illegal?
Illegal.
Really?
Yeah.
Those box trucks,
That just seems...
they chill my blood.
So what can you use to kill people legally?
Nothing.
that
Not
paper
even
clip.
hands and
This
fists.
paper
Get away from me.
Not even hands and fists. And more people use hands and fists to murder others than they do rifles. That's an FBI statistic.
Yeah, blunt objects kill a lot more people than rifles do.
Of course.
Of course
Well,
they do.
rifles don't kill people. Humans kill humans.
Okay, the
They might
means
use
by
blunt
which-
objects or hands and fists.
Yes. of
More
the-
than rifles.
Yes, of the means by which people are murdered, blunt objects are certainly. And why don't black rifles matter?
I don't know. Do
Why
pink
did
ones?
you-
Because I have a pink one.
You have pink one,
I have a pink one.
right? Why
It's really
isn't
cute.
That,
See,
why,
that's not scary
It's not so
looking.
scary. I sent that to.
The socks are scary, but the pink gun, not
This-
so much. I'm just saying.
See, but if you put the black, it's a 1522, and if you put that next to it's pink camo 1522, you put that next to a black one, people are gonna say, oh, that black one's that's scary. That's an AR platform. Oh, but the pink one, same thing.
Same thing.
Works the same exact way.
Have there been studies, like blind studies or some sort of
I
thing
don't
done?
think so.
It would be hilarious.
That would be
to
actually
find-
funny.
Yeah.
Wait, no, that's stupid.
Yeah, but it would be funny.
No, it's
well,
stupid.
gun control is stupid.
How can you have a blind study and be able to tell which color it is?
Wow.
He's taking it
This is a
literally.
rabbit hole I don't know how to get out of.
Just climb with me, Eric.
You can make it. Sorry.
No, I don't think they've actually done. It would be interesting though to see how people thought about if they see something like that. They work the same exact way.
Yeah.
And besides, semi-automatic rifles work the same exact way as a semi-automatic pistol. But no one ever says, let's ban semi-automatic pistols. They never say that, but they work the same way. Just one's a little bit bigger than the other one.
Right.
They work the same way. One trigger.
Well, you know what's
every pull,
actually
one shot.
It's actually ridiculous. And I've seen the news media do this forever, and a lot of it is like you say is perception. I remember when I first moved up here. Well, it was a few years after. Channel 9 was doing a thing. There was a guy in Concord who was shooting out back of his house, and the cops walked around the house into the line of fire, and so people were upset.
Why'd they do that?
The cop didn't get shot. Nobody got hurt.
But why'd they do that?
What?
Walk into his line of fire.
Because they probably weren't paying attention, whatever. But he nobody got hurt, okay?
Yeah.
But it was a big deal because at that time, if somebody got a hangnail, that made the news that night because there was no news in New Hampshire. And so this made the news, and the jerks from Channel 9 went around to the neighborhood with a picture of the gun and said, do you believe that somebody in your neighborhood owns one of these? Now, I've seen how this works, okay? I know how this works, and I'll exaggerate it to make my point. They'll go to 500 neighbors and videotape the one that is shocked that anybody in their neighborhood owns one of these guns.
course.
That's who makes airtime.
And that's the one that ends
Of
up on the
course.
air. Now, I happen to know enough about guns to know what I was looking at. It was a 22 that somebody had added plastic stocks to make it look like an AR-15 type rifle. And that's all it was. It just had plastic furniture on a 22.
What's the point of doing that anyway?
Oh,
is it more
just
comfortable to
Why
no,
not?
it just looks cool.
To shoot, or-
It just looks cool. There's no
to make it look cool?
there's no real there's an advantage to the
So it's
stock.
like blinging out your Honda Civic.
Yes, that's all it is.
Basically.
It's still a Honda Civic,
Okay.
but it looks cool.
It's got a big whale's tail, half the size of the car.
Right, yeah, exactly. 'Cause
And the
of-
muffler makes really strange noises.
yes.
You don't know where they put that subwoofer.
Yeah.
So, but
Takes up the whole back.
but that's the type of crap they do. It was,
Yeah.
and it was all appearance. It was nothing substantial. I know that the one time my favorite wife was offended by one of my guns. It was really weird because it's perception. I have a 30 carbine that I bought because it's basically from the. It could have been, in one way or another, actually held by my own father in Korea because it was guns that the Chinese government ended up with, and then they resold them back. Okay, so it was a Korean War vintage M1 carbine, and the kids were little at that time, so I didn't have a lot of money to spare. So I found a bayonet for it, but it was broken. So I re-epoxied it and stuff like that, and got it on there for I think $30 or something.
Wow.
And I put it on the end of the 30 carbine and showed it to my wife. And that bayonet on the end of that gun, she found more offensive than the gun. So it's perception. It had obviously bayonet's irrelevant.
Look, they do this with polls for gun control all the time. They say, do you think there should be universal background checks? people don't understand what universal background checks are. Most people don't understand that everyone gets a background check who's buying a firearm, except a very small percentage in private sales.
Right.
But you can serve up to 10 years in federal prison if you sell to a prohibited person knowingly.
Knowingly. Yeah,
Knowingly.
The knowingly is
And
the...
it's illegal for a prohibited person to try to buy a firearm if
Right.
they know they're prohibited.
Right.
So people don't know that there's background checks. Everyone gets background checks, even at, gun shows.
Yeah, I know, because there's people, I've had people, I don't know if it was on the show, that came on and talked about, well, you can buy a gun off the internet. No,
you
cannot. You can't.
No, you can't.
You
They have to
can-
mail it to an FFF dealer in your local area.
Right, they have to send it to Riley's or some other
You
place.
can't just mail a firearm. There's federal laws on that.
Right, so the the liberals are really good at convincing people that there's all these problems that don't exist.
Well, and that's why I do what I do, because I try to show people the truth.
Right.
You know, tell them and explain to them, no, that's not true. Here's the truth. Here are the facts. Here's the FBI stats. Here's the federal law. You can't argue with the actual facts in front of your face.
Some people can.
Some people will try.
Some people do
But
anyway.
it's the people who don't know, that sit on the fence, those are the ones who matter.
Right.
Not the ones that don't care.
I was saying that on to somebody about Facebook, because I have arguments about
So fence sitters matter.
fence sitters do matter,
Fence sitters matter. I used to be one.
because when I'm on social media like Facebook, I'll have an argument with somebody who's a liberal, okay, but it's at least on my page I make it respectful. As soon as somebody starts throwing out you're racist, they're done. Because obviously you have no argument. When you resort to calling somebody a racist or a Nazi, it means you've run out of logic and you're just grabbing at straws, and there's really no point to it.
They had logic. You're assuming they had logic in the first place?
They do. I do.
No, you do.
No, they do. I absolutely believe they do. They're very intelligent people.
It's,
A
I
lot
can't
of
say, I was almost said a bad word. It's
Oh.
backwards logic.
Okay, but it's logic from an entirely different angle. But anyway, I know that in that argument, I'm not going to sway them.
Right.
But I know that there's other people watching.
Yep, that's
And
why
that's
I do it.
Yeah,
That's the only reason I argue with idiots.
right.
And-
But I see the thing. That's why I disagree with you on that. I don't think they're idiots. I really.
Some of them are. No. I'm sorry. Sherry Frost is an idiot.
She's.
No, you cannot argue with me on that one.
We're going to make a lot of great points during this broadcast today, but the only poll quote that matters
Sherry
going
Frost.
forward, no matter how brilliant or logical we
So
That's the only- that's the
for
only
people who
thing
don't
to
know
say.
who she is, she's a New Hampshire state rep who won by default because no one ran against her, and she's a lunatic. She threatened. She said she felt homicidal against people like Gary because he's a Republican in the House. So that's
Well, she's
why.
not the first.
I'm sure she's not the first, but just yeah.
I think it had something to do with his melanin count too in his skin. You know,
Oh, that could be.
in other words,
Yes.
being a white guy.
Are you Christian
I am.
too?
If I remember
Oh
correctly.
yeah, I'm one of those.
You're white and Christian, and you're straight. Oh, forget it.
Ooh, I know.
Domestic
Get it.
terrorist
You
I
need
know.
to. Yeah.
I must be. I'm part of that.
You're
rape,
evil.
Rape culture.
Yeah.
or legislative terrorist, I believe is the word.
Legislative terrorist.
That we're going
That's
with.
actually pretty cool.
Legislative.
Could you get a license plate like that instead of saying my seat number?
I don't know. Check
Legislative
with House
terrorist.
leadership. They may
Ledge tear.
Ledge
Get
tear.
LEGTER. That'll work.
Yeah, but I'm saying the thing is us three, I know, are working from the point of view of understanding human nature to be inherently flawed,
Imperfect.
imperfect, and that government, if it is too large, is equally as flawed, but now it has guns
And power.
and power
And money.
and money. So now we understand that the fundamental documents that this country is founded on are based on that understanding that absolute power corrupts and corrupts absolutely. We all understand that, and that's the foundation of the Constitution. It's a Christian document based on that, because that's a Christian understanding of humanity. Well, liberals believe the opposite. Liberals believe that all men, except Republicans and straight Republicans, men, Christians, okay, most people are good, okay, and that's where they come from that angle, and so therefore bigger government is better because it can help control and make things better. I'm
That
saying
makes my head want to explode.
I get it, but I'm just saying.
I know that's what they think.
As somebody that's been on judiciary for a lot of years, and I deal with some very very bright people that are. I mean, there was a guy who was on the
Smart
committee that was obviously knew more about the. He was a lawyer. He knew a lot more about the law. Very bright guy, and I forget what it was. It was some bill, and it was going to hand over more power if it went a certain way to the judiciary. And I says, that's a bad idea. And he couldn't even conceive of why that would be.
It's because they believe they know what's best for us.
Right.
It's in Massachusetts, nanny state.
Right.
They believe they know what's best for us. So in their, it's evil but naive at the same time, because like you're saying, they think people are good, but if we're so good, why would they think they know what's best for us?
Right.
And
I
want to
get that.
demand that we do what they think is best.
I get that. I'm just saying your assertion that
I know
they're-
that not all people are evil.
Well, no, I'd say I think we all
I mean,
are. But I'm saying,
I'm talking about the left.
I'm saying that the left is not inherently unintelligent. They just have a completely different set of values.
No,
that they
I
go
wouldn't.
by.
I would not. I know some people I know who are leftists. They call themselves liberals. They are super book smart, super smart when it comes to certain things. But when it comes to the logical thing, they can't understand normal thinking. As far as that goes.
it
Well, that
normal
begs the
thinking or-
question of what's normal. When we're talking about the foundation of
Look
what
at the
constitutes
group of
normal
three
thinking.
people in this room
Yeah,
calling
that-
other people normal.
It's really
That's
hard
not-
to
Okay,
hard to
okay.
fathom.
So what I mean by
it's
normal
important.
thinking
I don't
is,
think we're
you think
qualified
as an
to-
individual, you don't think as a collective. To me, it's not normal to think as this big collective. You're an individual, and your family, are individuals who you make a unit. But,
I think you
Right.
hit the nail on the head. Is collectivism a good thing to
Versus
strive for, and to create architecture to accommodate the idea that collectivism is the best way to go, or is that a bad idea?
Look at me, I'm like,
to
no,
impose
no,
on everybody else.
Well,
No.
that's the same thing with, like, for instance, if I saw a poll, and I don't know what the number was, but the younger generation, the percentage of them that believe that communism or socialism is a good idea is like 40 or 50%. Or
that's because that's what they're being taught.
they're being taught,
Well, yeah, and
but they buy it.
they didn't live through the era that would have taught them otherwise. They didn't live through it.
Well,
That is
I don't.
true, too.
I was never involved in politics until 2008, so I don't recall. I just knew I always wanted less government because it means less taxes and, leave me alone. I'm an independent. I still am. I always will be. I never ascribed to any party, whatever beliefs. I was just always, leave me alone. Don't raise my taxes. And make the government smaller, or it should be smaller.
Right. The government should be small enough so we don't care who gets elected. Right?
So nice. That would be so nice.
Because I think that's what people want. They want to watch sports.
They want to watch.
And they don't want to care about who's elected or anything else. Please leave me alone. I pay my taxes. Leave me alone. And if the government was small enough, they could do that. But right now it has so much power.
Well, that's the problem and this is what, and I used to be one of them because I would only watch the debates. I would read the news, mainstream news, which I stopped doing a while ago, unless I'm calling them out. But I understand what it's like to be truly an independent voter who doesn't pay attention, or does, but only to the degree that you're handed propaganda or whatever.
Right. Here.
Joyce Craig was running around saying, I'm not going to raise the tax cap. I'm not going to do this or that. She's going to spend like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, of
as
course.
long as she gets away with it, because she owes the unions. They just bought her election. She owes them. That's how it works. And I didn't know that. I'm just saying, I didn't know that before I researched unions. I had no idea how in bed they were with Democrats. Some Republicans, but 98% it's Democrats.
That's a pretty big bed. I mean,
It's a
if you take
huge
If
bet.
you take that literally, I mean, that's like, how many
Public sector is the issue. I'm not talking about private sector. Public sector, because they're buying people into office who are going to negotiate their contracts.
Right,
See how that circle works? And we're the ones getting squished in between where the taxpayers paying for it.
right, yeah, I mean, I know, you see that,
Ultimately at gunpoint, because the people enforcing those laws and compelling you to pay taxes.
I don't.
Taxation is extortion. It's not theft. It's extortion. Because if you don't pay, you go to jail.
Right, they have the
Theft,
force
a
of
thief
law
walks
behind
away.
them.
The government doesn't walk away. If you don't pay, you go to jail.
See, well,
It's extortion.
well,
Legalized
swindling.
extortion.
Yeah.
The IRS is the mob.
yeah, the IRS is a whole different animal, but
We're really ideologically ambiguous.
We're really bad tonight.
on
I
this
know.
television show, folks. as
This
you can
isn't
tell.
even exactly what I expected to talk about, but okay.
Well, you do a lot
I-
of good work in the
Go with it.
community, and ultimately I'm hoping to get to that at some point.
go ahead,
because
go ahead. Let's go
you
there.
make
Let's
a
go
huge
there.
difference. I don't want to hijack
Because
it. but-
I'm just going to agree, and then we'll all sound like we're agreeing with each other. Let's find something I can disagree with.
What can we disagree on?
Kimberly Moran is a pretty outspoken person. I think you can tell that at this point.
Just a little.
A little bit.
But also has a tremendous heart for making the world better and safer, as a matter of fact, and has a big heart for empowering women, which is a theme you don't hear bounced around an awful lot in what are considered to be Republican circles or conservative circles. But the fact is, it's every bit as important to people on all parts of the political spectrum. And she's putting her money where her mouth is, and she's putting her time and efforts where that thought is. And if you would care to expand on that, that'd be great.
I'm the president of the Women's Defense League of New Hampshire, and we train women how to safely and accurately use firearms. Lots of women, from 12 to almost 80. We teach Refuse to be a Victim classes. We teach basic pistol classes. We teach all kinds of different classes because my goal would have everyone be able to safely and accurately shoot so she can protect herself and her family. Because a firearm is an equalizer. And it's, especially if you live alone or you're somewhere alone and you are attacked, which does happen. It's just the reality. I wish it wasn't. If you're trained, you can actually protect yourself. And we also fight gun control and helped pass constitutional carry,
Okay.
which I can't even say.
So there's a big difference between being a gun nut, so to speak, that cliche, with the devil's horns and the wild
I'm a Second
eyes.
Amendment nut.
Yeah. And being a person who
You're
believes in
just a
training.
nut. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're an education nut.
Yes.
so
Oh, I
to
love.
speak.
I've taught
Training.
4 classes already this past month, and I take more classes. I just became a shotgun instructor, and I'm going to become a rifle instructor. So all the while I'm educating people, I'm getting more education. I take, concealed carry classes, skill building classes. We teach those classes. It's really important to protect yourself,
Can I
in my
ask you-
opinion.
And I wouldn't have any way of knowing this, so you would have to know. Because in my mind, and I've been saying this for so long, I don't remember when I started saying it. But to me, the most beautiful thing in the world would be, instead of hearing about a woman at the park who was attacked, if you heard, a man shot 5 times in the groin in the park because of an attempted rape. Mm-hmm. The number of rapes would decline quite quickly.
Absolutely.
Because that's so, they're not, because then women aren't perceived as victims, which is what I think the left really wants. But anyway,
Victimhood, yeah.
do you see a noticeable change in the women when they start, before they start, and they just kind of want to learn, and then all of a sudden they know how to carry, and they're carrying a gun? Do you see them their attitude change from I'm afraid to?
Oh, yeah. Just in that one, we've had women who've come in who have been really kind of upset by it. A lot of times, no offense, guys, but a lot of times some guys will take their girlfriends or their wives to the range, but they don't have a .22, the smallest caliber, right?
Which is moronic.
Right, but they don't know any better. They're
No.
trying to help their wife or
Some
girl.
of them.
Well,
some of them do it because they're arrogant jerks.
Right, but so it's happened to me. but it was my father-in-law. They weren't trying to be jerks. They didn't have, and I was actually in Massachusetts. I started out with a 44 semi-automatic, and it scared the daylights out of me.
It's a big gun.
I was like, okay, I'm done. Let's go. I want to go. And then they convinced me to try the 357 revolver, which I happen to love.
No, did
I
you,
love it
fairly
first shot.
but now did they
It's still my favorite gun to this day.
did they let you shoot 38s out of it first?
No, they're not instructors. They weren't instructors. But so sometimes we'll get women who come to us and they were that kind of situation happened. Only it wasn't is work out good like it did for me, and they're afraid. I mean,
Of course they are.
afraid. But when we train them and teach them, we're patient. We do it the right way, and they leave there. I've had women jumping up and down. They've been so happy. Huge smile. There is nothing like seeing a woman shoot for the first time and that big smile that comes on her face. Instant empowerment.
Right.
Instant.
That is awesome because that's Matt Connerton, my former co-host, and other people I've taken out for the first time. That's always what I do. I always start with the 22.
You have to.
Make sure they're comfortable with that, and you teach the safety part of it first because a 22 will kill you just as dead as anything else. But there's not a lot of recoil. The report's mild. And then you try them on a 38 special, and if they're okay with that, so okay with
Yeah, you can move up to different. Exactly.
and I have 9mm, so they go up to a 9mm, and is that okay? And if they want to try the 10mm, that's great.
Well, it was funny. After that experience, I hadn't shot another one that size. I mean, I've shot 454 hand cannon, but that's a different story.
454 Casal?
Yeah, at the range, it was a lot of fun.
Really?
Yeah, but aside from that,
I'm just scared of the name.
it's really awesome. But anyway, so I tried someone's 45 semi-automatic, and I was expecting it to be hard, bad, right?
Yeah, they're not.
Because of
They're
my
mild.
original experience.
Right.
I was like, this is not. I said, oh, wish list.
Wish
It was
list.
nothing. It was like it was the same. Just because I had over
It's
the
got
years.
about the similar recoil to a 9mm.
It's probably less. I would think it would be less because
Well, it
it's
depends
bigger.
on the gun. Well, it's heavier.
Yeah, it depends on the-
If
it
you get a
depends.
1911, it's all steel. It's just there's so much more mass.
Yep.
But yeah, but the felt recoil, I think is similar as far as technically. But yeah, the most powerful handgun I've ever shot, and I'm so glad my friend bought the gun. It was a 308 Encore
Handgun?
handgun.
Oh my god.
So it's got a 10-inch barrel and a handle, and it shoots a 308, which is what snipers used in Vietnam.
You guys are freaking me out, man. You see, here's the funny part, folks.
See, now we
No,
have to
I'm-
talk.
so wait, so let
As
me-
we geek out on guns over here, I'm super not a gun guy. I'm a sword guy, which is, it's a whole other world of geeking. But I respect it and understand the enthusiasm because, it just, not only is it a legitimate form of self-defense, proportional self-defense, not only do you apparently set women free from their fear by giving them skills and knowledge and proper training, but for you, it became an interest. It became something of a hobby.
I never.
But it doesn't for everybody, and it doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't have. Of course not. If you try it and you don't like it, that's fine. No one's saying you should like it or you have to like it. But the point is having somewhere where a person can try it to see if they do like
comfortably
it.
try it.
Because I've had women who have been abused or who have been stalked or who have been victims of crime, and they vow never again to be a victim of crime. And that's why it drives me insane when legislators want to put more gun control into place. Most of it's just going to hurt all of it is going to only hurt law-abiding citizens.
It hurts the vulnerable.
There's a bill that's going to be coming up in this session. Jan Schmidt.
Who, incidentally, whatever
Is
opinions
a-
you may have, is a state representative.
Yes, she's a Democrat state
I
rep.
myself personally did lose my seat to her.
You did not. That was
This last year in 2016, and moreover, my city alderman just lost his seat to her as well just last night. So she is not only now a state representative, the Honorable Jan Schmidt, and I have to treat her as such.
You can go ahead. I don't have to.
I have an excellent rapport with Jan, and we haven't continuing ongoing rapport. I was just sitting next to her husband last night waiting for the vote
Oh, he's
count.
awful too.
Well,
Sorry.
You're free to say that.
I can say that. You don't have to say that.
They're neighbors of mine.
It's
I'm
my
not gonna do that,
experience.
but I just thought you might enjoy that news flash knowing
Well,
that she is now a city alderman.
they like to discriminate and disempower women and make women victims, the two of them. Jan actually votes for it.
And that is the strong opinion of our guest, and we're going to indulge
Oh, no,
that.
it's not opinion. It's a fact. I can show you the votes.
Go ahead. Tell me what she did.
So she wants to put in legislation that will allow landlords to not let people move into their home if they have firearms. So it'll allow a landlord to discriminate against people because you'll have to fill out something saying I have firearms or whatever, however they want to work
Wow.
it. So think about that. Now, a single mom who leaves an abusive relationship and says she wants to protect herself, she already has a hard enough time getting a place to live.
Right.
Because of the whole single mom thing. That's you know, it's gotten better, but that's a real thing. So she
Huge financial
now
squeeze
is going to
on a person
get
like that.
discriminated against because she has a firearm to dare protect herself?
Wow, it's actually worse than that.
I question whether that legislation will go very far.
I won't go very
It
far.
won't.
But think about this. You're a landlord, right? Liability. You had the option to keep firearms out of your building, and you chose not to, and my child just got shot.
You're right.
The liability would be bizarre.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, this is the problem, and it's both sides do this with the narrow vision of legislation. They just think this is going to do something, and they think about one thing it's going to do, and they don't think about the ramifications and how it affects all kinds of different areas.
They're
That's
huge.
what drives me insane about, no offense,
No offense. I'm
to
not.
legislators, because
Or people that want to add laws.
or people, yeah,
Specifically.
please, let's not add any laws. Let's take them out. Get rid of them.
Sure.
We should be getting rid of laws.
Some
not adding
legislators
any.
are share your opinion about that.
Yes, they do.
Guess how many bills I introduced this year?
Good job.
You know why? Because 1,000 bills are introduced this year.
1,100 this session.
1,100, okay? Keep in mind, if you have 1,100 bills, I have to do the math again. If you have some legislators that have 30 bills, okay, that they're a part of, okay? A bill, if it takes 15 minutes on the House floor, excluding how much time it took in committee,
Yeah.
if it takes 15 minutes on the House floor, that's 100 hours of volunteer time you took. You stole it for your cockamamie idea. If you get 10 of them, how many, what is that? I already lost track. It was
100 times 10?
Yeah, so 10,000. You've taken 10,000 volunteer, because the legislators are volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay, you should be cognizant of the time that you're taking from them. It's like JR and some others ask for roll calls all the time. Takes an extra 5 minutes a vote for something you already know how they voted 2 days ago on pretty much the same issue. You're not going to glean anything else out of it, and nobody's going to know how they voted because people don't know.
Okay, so I believe in roll calls for everything. The Senate never does roll calls. I want a roll call for every damn vote.
No.
Yes.
I believe...
I don't care how long it takes you. I want you on record how you voted.
I believe I should be on record how I voted on let's say a gun issue or pro-life or
Every
if
issue.
you're on every issue, but we don't need a roll call every single time the issue comes up or every single time somebody
What's amendment?
not even an amendment might be relevant, but like for instance, they'll have the vote on the bill, and then there'll be a vote to table, and then there'll be a vote for this and a vote for this. That's 4 roll calls.
Okay, I'm
And
with
it's-
you on that one.
it's
yeah.
insane.
That's a little bit much.
Because to me, if you're in the legislature, you should respect the fact that everybody in there is a volunteer. They should be on record as to how they voted on the Second Amendment, how they voted on right to life, how they
Big
voted
stuff.
on taxes, everything else. I agree
Wait,
with
so
that.
I want to interrupt because just in case people at home who are watching don't know, every bill gets a hearing. Every bill. So
No,
they're not just, even if a bill is dumb,
not
it's just
true.
quick. They get a hearing in the committee.
Except for
No.
consent.
That is not true.
They don't?
They do not.
So how many of the 1,100 bills will get hearings, and what happens?
All 1,100 will probably get hearings. I'm just saying that I personally have introduced legislation that never went to a committee, never had a hearing.
But something happened before that, right? Did you withdraw it?
Nope,
Why didn't it get a hearing?
Speaker did not like it.
The speaker can't like 1,100 bills.
Right, I get that, but it
Speaker
was,
did not like it and railroaded the bill before it got assigned to a committee?
it never was assigned to a committee.
Oh, well, okay, so bills are supposed to all get hearings. That's how it usually works.
I am, I mean, as,
Fascinating.
I am.
Politics.
It is politics. I am, I believe, although I find women attractive, I think women should be all treated with respect regardless of where you are and what environment it is. And the director of Fish and Game was taking advantage of his position as director of Fish and Game, and it was he was so abusive to the women. They used to call each other to try to get the other one back. They never wanted to be alone in the office with Wayne Vedder.
Oh, my God.
And it was so bad.
At the commission itself? You mean?
No,
you
that's the
talking
Fish and
about-
Game the Fish and Game Department.
The
The
department.
director of Fish and Game was Wayne Vedder.
Oh, I've been there. That department was like that?
So people
Oh, it
at
was
work
horrible.
felt
They
uncomfortable
were
being around the
threatened
director.
by him, and
Got it.
he threatened them for other reasons, other political reasons. He was brought before the governor and the council, and they gave him a 3-month paid vacation.
So-
And that was what's our senator?
Jean Shaheen.
Shaheen was the governor, who was supposed to be quote unquote protecting women. She did not. They slapped him on the wrist, and then they punished the girl who basically filed the complaint. They kicked her out of the office.
Wow.
Punish the
So I
whistleblower.
filed a bill of. This is actually one of the most fun things I ever did. Stressful as hell, because I had everybody against me. I filed put an LSR for a bill of address against Wayne Vedder. We had sign off on Friday. What's her name? The House Counsel, I've forgotten her name, came up to me in the House and says, Gary, you know it's a bill of address and it's constitutionally provided for, so you don't have to file by the Friday's deadline. Betsy Miller. I says, really? She goes, yeah. I said, okay. Well, I'm Irish, but I'm not that Irish. So I emailed her that night. Says a lot of stuff happened, Betsy. You know, and I'm not sure. Are you correct? So it's only my second term, and I was wondering if she was even telling the truth, but I wanted it in writing. So I says, hey Betsy, she sent me back this email that you couldn't tell what she meant. Okay, so I know she's lying to me.
Yeah.
Gene Chandler was the Speaker of the House, and I believe he's hunting buddy with Vedder. Gene Chandler comes up to me in committee, like a few days before I have to sign off, and says, "Have you seen the redacted executive report?" And I said, "No, nobody's seen that. There's like 2 copies in the state, and the press hasn't seen it. It was completely hush hush, you know." He says, "Well, I want you to read that before you sign off." I said, okay, 600-page report. I'm still working full-time. Punch out at 6 o'clock at night. Stayed till midnight, copying stuff because I know that they're already after me. I had people calling, all kinds of people calling, trying to get me to deter me from doing this. So anyway, so I read the report. And I ran it by another guy who worked with Jim Stump, and I showed some of the stuff, and he says, and he's the one who came up with the term that I liked. But anyway, so I wanted to make sure, because I was wicked overtired, and I don't want to file somebody that's going to ruin somebody's career if I'm wrong.
Right.
Because I'm not in the tank for anybody. I'm trying to arrive at a truth. And so that Friday, I went down and I returned the copy to the Speaker's office. Betsy Miller comes running out of the office. Representative Harper, what'd you think? I says, Betsy, after thoroughly reading that and understanding what went on, I don't believe there is enough evidence to impeach Wayne Vedder as director of Fish and Game. Her shoulders lifted up. Her eyes lifted up. I says, but there was more than enough evidence to convince me that he is a liability to the state, and I filed a bill of address 5 minutes ago. Crunched her. That bill, if you look, I think it was 2003, Wayne Vedder, Gary Harper sponsor, it never had a hearing.
Wow.
He did resign. So it had the effect.
It did have the effect.
It did have the effect,
But
but it was never, when they tell you that, they are lying. That bill never was assigned to committee. The committee was never gathered. It never had a hearing. It was just dragged around to the next year, laid on the table, and then killed.
And then killed, yeah.
So the speaker wanted to quash a public.
They didn't want any of this in public because it's really, really bad.
It would have been a tar and feathering.
Well, no.
There's lots of people who could be tarred and feathered.
It wasn't that. It was
Yeah,
because he used to use company stuff to go on hunting trips, watch porno, and there was other people in those rooms, in those camps, that are, probably pretty high up the food chain, and they
People
don't
abuse privilege, really? In this state?
I know, it's hard to believe.
No.
But anyway,
Not New Hampshire.
not New Hampshire. So
We're straight
when you
shooters.
hear that, all bills get a hearing. That is typically
They're
the case.
supposed to. All bills are supposed to get a hearing.
Okay.
Okay, there. Is that better?
Yes.
Most do.
Most do.
Most do.
Most do.
Some kind of hearing. Although it's true that in committee, there are many instances where committee leadership, as per the wishes of House leadership, expedite the crushing of a given bill very quickly. And
Some of them need to be crushed really quickly.
Like this
some
one
do.
we were just talking about.
Some do.
Exactly.
But that stuff is orchestrated behind the scenes, and there
Yeah.
are times when
That's very annoying.
there are people that want to speak on behalf of a given bill for whatever reason, and they're really not given adequate venue to do that, or they're rushed along, or whatever.
They
And I've
schedule
seen that
things to
happen,
make
too.
sure that only a few people get to speak, and if
Yeah,
you
or they
really wanna-
reschedule them and.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of
there's
their
all
favorite
kinds of games.
tools.
But the same goes true if they want to push a bill through too. We know
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
make sure that gets pushed
They
through.
put it on the conveyor belt.
Sometimes it works out well in our advantage in our favor, but
Yeah, the Second
Again, it
Amendment.
depends on leadership.
I think,
Yeah.
it does, and I think the Second Amendment is typically very well protected at the state house.
do you remember a few years ago, Democrats controlled the House under Norelli?
Yeah.
And they tried to pass universal background checks. It failed. Democrat-controlled House.
Yeah, because the Democrats don't want that.
Well, because Democrats own firearms too.
Well, there's also
Sorry.
they also know that that's almost like the third rail of politics in New Hampshire.
Yep. We're one of the safest states in the country. We have some of the least strict gun control laws, but yet we're one of the safest states.
Yeah, I had
Even in the world, actually, not even just the country.
That raises a thought I wanted to ask our guest, if I may. Now, sometimes I listen to, this is my dirty little secret, sometimes I listen to NPR just because of the mayhem on other radio stations. I like the style of public broadcasting.
I
don't
have to-
necessarily
I
like
agree with that, actually.
the ideological orientation that most of it that they
Almost
have
all
on
of
most
it.
of their broadcasting. But I like the fact that people speak from a place of intelligence and from a place of being informed. They bring a lot of experts on their shows.
Or at least you think they are, yeah.
Yeah.
You think they are, right?
You give them, you're given the perception that they're.
And a lot of times when they touch on the subject of guns and gun control, there's plenty of people there that are altogether too happy to wave around their credentials and cite statistics that suggest to the contrary of what you just said, that there's a correlation between freedom and Second Amendment rights that are protected in a robust way and low crime rates and low general amount of danger in a given locale. So we would provide the argument of, well, look at Chicago. There's a case study of that not working. But I hear
don't
statistics.
think that's true. I don't think that's a case study.
Okay, I agree with you, but I hear statistics that
Okay,
say,
so-
well, you know what? There's just no corollary, so your argument fails. What do you say to that?
Well, so there's extremely strict, some of the strictest in the whole country in Chicago.
Oh yes, I agree with that. Yep.
You know, there's less crime in the outer areas of Chicago than in the city.
Okay.
You could probably say that about other cities too, right? I mean, so there's different things that are going on. You know, poverty, gangs, whatever. There's
Yeah.
different things going on. However, the fact remains that law-abiding citizens aren't allowed to protect themselves, but yet the criminals run around shooting up everybody.
Right.
So that's the fact that remains. So how many? If we actually took apart all the gun murders committed with guns in those places, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to see how many were gangbanger against gangbanger, criminal against criminal,
Sure.
or criminal against innocent law-abiding citizen.
Yeah,
That would be very interesting to see, because they don't ever want to break that really down and look at that, because then they'd have to admit their policies on poverty and all these other things are a
Economic
failure.
policies in general.
Yeah, they'd have to admit, going back as far as FDR has been a failure
Right.
in their policies, and that's contributing to the things that are going on.
That is actually the cause.
You're right.
Well, yeah, I mean, people make their own choices, but when it's all you know
Well,
and
no.
what you're taught,
You had
it was LBJ actually.
Daniel Patrick Moynihan was asked to try to find out statistically what's going on in the inner city, and he did what's called the Moynihan Report.
When was this?
This is 1965-ish.
Oh.
It's before I was even born.
What a,
It's like a birthday present. So Patrick Moynihan was super liberal, and he presumed that he would find out what he would determine. His pre-conclusion was that the problem was poverty and bad schools.
Yeah,
Okay, that was it.
Still
that was
is.
Okay. Well, what he found out that really wasn't the problem. He found out what the biggest problem was: fatherlessness.
that contributes. That's
No,
absolutely.
That's it. Because little boys, and you know this from growing up, little boys are wild. Okay? They need dad there when they get out of hand, because they need something strong as a deterrent. I know that may sound offensive, but that's what the reality.
they also need a walking example of self-control.
I was going to say an
Exa-
example.
that
That's
too.
really.
There's two.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
Here's
they
how
need
you do it, kid.
They need
Yeah.
somebody that understands them, because mom doesn't. Typically, I'm saying.
My kid's a conservative because of me.
I know, but that's different. I'm saying when a little boy does weird stuff, that mom's not going to get it. Typically, not all the time.
I know. I know what you're saying.
I am going
just
in
like little
generality.
girls need a mom. No. I get
so-
what you're saying. It's
So
what do they call it? A two-parent family.
Right, exactly.
But there's another word for it, but I can't
Nuclear
think of it.
family.
Nuclear. Thank you.
Okay, so that was
Nuclear.
at 25% of the black
That was
kids
way back then.
in Chicago and places like that were being brought up in broken homes.
And he was coming at
25%.
this with a liberal bias
Yes.
already.
And he
It's
said
interesting.
that was the problem.
Okay.
Now you can presume that this was deliberate or not, but I like to believe in effect. Like, for instance, a New Hampshire Firearm Coalition says they're pro-Second Amendment, but if you look at what they succeed in, they do more harm to the Second Amendment than any other group in the state.
Oh, well,
Okay.
I'm not going to say anything. Go
Okay.
ahead.
The Democrats said we have to attack poverty, even though they already determined that wasn't the problem. So they paid young women to stay home, and if dad came home, you lose your money.
That was LBJ.
That was LBJ.
Yes, that was the war on poverty.
The war on poverty. Then by the 70s, you had one of the biggest mistakes Reagan ever made was he started in California the no-fault divorce, which took the emphasis from you're there to raise children to if I'm not happy, they're not happy.
And now divorce rate
Completely
is
flipped it.
over 50%.
And so you went from 25% of the children in Washington, D.C. being brought up by intact nuclear families in 1965 to by the year 2000, only 25% of them were raised in nuclear families.
Wow.
And that's what the issue is. It's fatherlessness and broken homes. The gun laws don't help because, like you say, people can't defend themselves. But it was the possibly deliberate policies of the Democrats
deliberate.
that enslaved or subjugated the blacks in the inner city.
It was deliberate. absolutely deliberate. And poverty was actually going down, trending down,
Oh, yeah.
before they put the war on poverty policies into place. It was trending down, and it's what under Obama hit a 50-year high. So how'd that work out? Not so well. It's horrifying, actually, when you think about it. Along the same kind of lines, a couple years ago, I was at a gun rights policy conference, but I got to spend
Really?
I got to spend a few days in Arizona.
I thought she was going to say suspended.
I've never been suspended. Have I? No. I had to think. She's in
a Facebook jail. I know.
Oh yeah, I've been in.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's
Did I out
okay.
you?
Then yeah. Damn it. I forgot about that.
Again.
Tarnished her.
Oh, yeah,
Tarnished her.
you
Never from Twitter though.
Unsullied
Totally
record.
tracked you. That was really good. Usually we don't
Throw a
attack our
little
guests.
shade on our guests.
I know,
Sorry
right?
about that.
Angel, see that angel?
Yeah.
That halo. So I spent accidentally driving hours and hours through Indian reservations
Yep.
by myself.
Wow.
And
Wow.
when I talk to people from Arizona later, they're like, "You drove through there by yourself? You shouldn't have
Bad
done that."
move. Bad move.
Well, and on top of it, I was carrying because I can in Arizona, and
But not necessarily on there.
you can as long as you're traveling through, because same federal laws apply. But if I was on the reservation as a white woman, no guns for me.
I was going to say.
Oh,
No,
really?
it's against the
I was gonna
law
say
on the reservation.
On res, that's
No
a whole
way.
different
But
deal.
you can travel because of federal law. You can travel, but I didn't have, whatever. We won't go into what. But it was horrifying, the poverty that I saw. Because I always support Native. I always support Indians. I always buy jewelry and whatever support
Yeah.
what they do, and I was horrified. The poverty. I was coming up to something, and there's like a whole lot of nothing because it was Arizona. I mean, it's desert.
Right.
And I was coming up to something, and I thought it was like a prison. When I passed it, it was a school. Huge, massive barbed wire. Then there was
Wire for
A school?
it was horrifying. Out in Nowheresville. Out but whose fault is that? The government.
Yeah.
They're dependent on the government.
Well, no, that's not entirely
Well,
true.
it's not entire. It's a choice as well, but you know what I'm saying.
No. We got to go in 2 seconds, but New Mexico.
Look at me. I'm looking at the clock like I know.
This is beautiful, actually. This is actually kind of, part of it's kind of funny, kind of it's sad. New Mexico, when they did the Manhattan Project, they went to the Indians and says, hey, we need all this land. They go, they're so used to just losing, they said, whatever. Or maybe they were patriotic. I don't know, probably a little of both. So anyway, then the laws changed. They ended up having, on that same Indian reservation, they've got a casino.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the New Mexican government said, hey, you're not paying taxes on that stuff in the casino. That's not right. Well, now they can afford lawyers,
Yeah.
right? And so the New Mexican government saying you have to pay taxes just because you're, in on a reservation. That doesn't, you're not exempt, right?
Yes, you are.
They said, well,
Should be.
all right, we'll pay you taxes. But you know that road you got going through our reservations? We're putting up a toll booth.
That's awesome.
Bam.
Bam! But the sad part about that is my brother-in-law that lives there said it's still a lot of poverty on that reservation.
Yep.
Because the people who are making the money, the chiefs and all that, it doesn't necessarily make it down
Doesn't get to the
everybody.
little
It
No,
doesn't
and
get to
this
everybody.
one of the reservations I was on was it was on Hopi and Navajo, and they had a casino on one of them as well.
Right, so it's inhumanity is not a racial thing. People
Absolutely not.
You-
It's a government thing.
Well, I'm saying that
Sorry.
even on the reservations, you have that government
Of
that
course.
is just as inhumane
Yes.
as
Absolutely.
right. So it's not the federal government, but anyway,
Any type of government with power.
correct. Thank you very much for coming on,
Thank you for having me.
Eric. You're awesome, by the way.
So are you. Thanks, man.
That is true.
Thanks. That is a mint shirt.
It's not mint. It's teal.
It's
Teal.
aqua.
It's aqua. Thank you,
Aquaman.
Aquaman.
Pretty awesome. Any closing comments? We touched on a lot of stuff.
I think we
Ms.
covered
Kimberly
everything in the
Moore,
planet,
but
pretty much.
I just wish people would be informed. don't listen to politicians because you got to look and
Except
see what
me,
they're saying
except
is
me,
really true.
except
Are there any resources
I would
people
even
can...
verify what you say.
I wouldn't know. Whoa! That was accurate.
So
Hey.
in closing, are there any resources you would direct people to for better education on some of the stuff we talked about?
Look at legislation on the general court and just in general try to find
How can they follow you?
New Hampshire Political Buzz. I'm also on Twitter at conservative IND.
Kim, you're awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks
go
for having
See you
me.
change.
guys next week.
Good to see you again.